Welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for our weekly show. We took a few weeks off during the Giro. I apologize. I hope there was enough podcasts to keep you going. This is brought to you by our show partner, Join Cycling. But we've got some news to discuss. Alexander Vinokurov with a bit of a slight maybe at Cedric Vasseur about the relegation battle. Mathieu van der Poel, his mountain bike woes continue. Some race recaps and, of course, a preview of the Critérium du Dauphiné beginning this weekend, where three of the big guns and three of the Tour de France favourites are having a one-week showdown. We'll really have a detailed preview of that indeed. But without much further ado, let's go into some race recaps, Benji. We had quite a few races on the minor calendar during the Giro d'Italia. We had the Tour of Norway, which was quite a soft parcours. No Galster Toppen, where Remco and Jay Vine went crazy against Plappy in 2022-21. It was like a puncher's parcours. Yeah, good start list though. Jan Christen, Maxim van Heels, Matthew Brennan, Christoph. He always wins the Stavanger stage. And it was, the first stage was a Coupe Repsol rider got away. Brennan won the sprint behind. Second day was a 1.5k 6% sprint. Brennan dusted off Langolotti, who went early. Christen was very aggressive. Third day was a 2.5k 8.5% 5-minute climb. And Van Gils just beats Brennan, who survived the Christen onslaught once again. The fourth stage was a Stavanger sprint where Brennan beat Christoph, who was very disappointed. It's his hometown, as I said. So Brennan takes GC. Good performance from him with 2 stage wins. Did you catch any of this race, Benji?
I did. Well, first of all, Matthew Brennan is the MVP of the race. Is the rider that everybody's impressed by after this race. I'll be honest, when it comes to Brennan, we know he's got the talent by now. We know what he's like. We know he's one of the riders that in a couple of years will be one of the big stars in the sport based on what we are seeing right now. Because how many wins does he have this season? 8 wins so far. Yeah. And yes, a Tour of Norway victory. That's not on the level of some of his other victories. He's already won World Tour races, Catalonia stage, Romandy stage, and those matter. And the first Catalonia stage will stay in my mind as a super impressive victory. That was not just that
was a proper win.
A happy walk around the park kermesse. That wasn't the case. That was absolutely destroying the people he was against. And that was super impressive. And I can't wait to see what Matthew Brennan grows into, because right now, I would classify him as a versatile sprinter, as like his main capability. But he's more than that, right? Because we've seen him in Paris-Roubaix do relatively proper. Let's be honest about that. Outside of that, I would also say that in flat sprints, he's done pretty good. Punchy-wise, maybe he can do a little bit more than just a versatile sprint, but he's got to have his limits at some point. So where do we see his limits in the future?
It's hard to say, I don't think he'll win the Tour de France GC, but
no.
I mean, I also expected Christen to drop him on a 6-minute 8.5% climb, I'll be honest. Like when I saw what Christen did in Flesh and Maxim van Gils, okay, Van Gils has not been consistent. Van Gils hasn't had the spring he had last year. Van Gils still smoked guys in an uphill sprint, Velens in Andalusia. He still, did some other stuff. Like he's still on an easy stage, proper 5-minute punch. Van Gils is class. Yeah. And he still beat Brennan, of course, but it was way closer than I expected. I thought the GC was going to be decided there. So he can do crosswinds, he can do everything. And Van Gils lost a minute and a half there in the crosswinds.
Exactly, but Brennan in total itself, just him being there and him being able to follow Van Gils relatively on that uphill climb finish, well, that shows that he's more than just a versatile sprinter, and that shows that that's the end of the day. The GC victory for him, because he wins 2 stages, stage 2 and stage 4. Van Gils ends up crashing after the finish line on stage 3 after beating, I think, Brennan there. So he could have, he was close on 3 stages, right? The first one, he was just behind Storm Ingebrigtsen.
Brennan?
Yeah?
Yeah. They didn't catch the early break.
So super impressive. And what is his next schedule? Because that I do want to take a look at for a second, because right now on pieces it says Duracell dwars door het Hageland.
Yeah,
I look forward to that personally, but outside of that, I'm extremely curious where we will see him for the rest of the year, because is he ready to do La Vuelta? I think level wise he can win a Vuelta stage, but
you're not going to start the Brennan to the Tour. You're going to start the hashtag Brennan to the Tour, Benji. I guess it's a bit. We normally start that around Tour of Turkey. For the
Exactly.
a sprinter wins a couple of stages at Turkey, we start to get that going. But
To be honest, can I be real?
yeah.
Matthew Brennan, the way he's climbing and sprinting, I don't know, my man, but Wout van Aert's in trouble. Okay, after the Giro, I can't make that joke anymore. But at the Tour de France, I reckon Matthew Brennan could compete in a few of the versatile sprints, actually.
Yeah, sure. For sure. I mean...
But I think the Vuelta's a better option.
In hindsight, Visma made a mistake in Omloop using him as like an early attacker.
Yes, but you don't know that at that point. So you can't... That's such a hindsight thing where I can't blame Visma Leasebike for using Brennan early in Omloop at Nieuwsblad when...
It's funny to say it, though.
Yeah.
They're legit. He would have got a better result for the team if he was like in the Varensgold role, just following.
Before we get to Boucle de la Mayenne, I want to talk about Vuelta Burgos women, because in that race it was...
Oh, well, yeah, Tour Norway women. It's a new race. They did the last two stages, the same circuits as the men. It was actually a very nice race. They had an uphill finish. Justine Hakira and AG Insurance were dominant on the first uphill finish. Gigante led it out. Then Hakira sprinted. They had like 1, 3rd, and 5th on GC. Second stage, chaos. They struggled to control. It was the Stavanger circuit, which for the women in that peloton was really selective. Otterstad and UNOX were attacking a lot. Otterstad gets away with Kladnova on Visma. She works too much. Otterstad drops her, goes solo, drops Hengeveld, who was in an earlier break, and Age Insurance can't control Otterstad, the Norwegian champ. Solo wins GC, wins the final stage. Really nice move. And then there was a sprint behind. I think Anderson won. So UNOX win that edition, and yeah, it was quite a good race.
When it comes to Reusser, we've already seen that she was climbing well this season so far. So when I say Vuelta Burgos women, we're going to talk about Reusser mostly, I think, for this race, because this is a pretty proper race. Voting was not at the start for this one, so it's an opportunity for the Labous of the world to compete with Reusser in her own stand. And we've seen Reusser in the race before, La Vuelta Femenina and so forth, climbing really strongly, like properly gapping Van der Breggen on the climbs and being perhaps the second best climber in the race there. So I'll look at Reusser as someone who's back to her best level, which really happy to see that after the struggle she's gone through over the last 1.5 years before 2025. And you know that she can climb, you know that she can time trial. When you look at the parkour of Burgos women, she should win that race, and that's exactly what she did. But I reckon she did more than I expected. I wasn't expecting on stage 2 that she'd end up riding away with Bjørndal Otterstad, actually, and gaining 18 seconds in GC on that stage alone already. And then once you get to the actual climbs on Picon Blanco, for example, she destroyed everyone. Yara Kastelein was surprisingly strong, though, on Picon Blanco. She held on longer than I expected it to happen. And when I looked through the rest, I was... How do you feel about FDJ Suez?
They got the order wrong.
But do they know that beforehand? Because Labous is on paper the one you go for, though.
Labous in the Vuelta wasn't that good.
When I see that star list, I would go for Labous over Xavi.
Okay, I agree, but I wouldn't go for either of them, saying they're better than Reusser after what I saw in the Vuelta. So I wouldn't have done it the way they did, where you just hard pace with Reusser. Said, "Thanks you very much for the lead out after Patino," and she would have won anyway. She was too good, but they probably should have just followed. Yeah, followed or actually attacked.
Yeah, okay, I think that's fair. Outside of that, it's quite interesting. Like Petra Szczasny, every now and then we see like a very good climbing performance of her. This is one of them, but at the end of the day, when there's echelons, she's gone, right? That's the sad reality.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Bunel and Szczasny and some of the smaller riders. They're just, when it's really explosive in the cross, especially when the women seem to do so many races in like Extremadura or the Burgos on these like plateaus with crosswinds. They do, and the Vuelta always has those stages last 2 years, which makes for good racing. But yeah, the smaller climbers often don't make it to the mountains with even close on GC.
Anyway, to wrap that race up, Reusser also ends up winning the final time trial after winning on Picon Blanco and takes home GC, unsurprisingly, but still impressive. And I look forward to seeing what she will do at multiple races on her schedule, actually. Tour de Suisse women upcoming, then Giro d'Italia women, Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, and then Tour de Romandie Féminin. So she's got lots of stage races on the platter coming up, and I reckon she's probably going to win another one of them. not so sure about Tour de France Femme. I'm leaning more towards the Swiss races than for a victory for Reusser. But she's climbing very well, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. But someone who's not climbing at the level that, in my opinion, you'd hope if you have GC ambitions for the Tour de France Femme is Lotte Kopecky. And has she openly stated that she's more leaning towards Tour de France Femme this year? I swear she did at the start of the year, no?
I think she might have said that, but they also have Van der Breggen, who right now is climbing, way better than her. So maybe that's just something we made up. But yeah, she's not looking near contention for Tour de France GC. Like maybe on a different year, but with the way she's climbing, Col de la Madeleine is 1 hour and 10 minutes at 8%. It doesn't matter if you get some bonus sprints or you even are selective in the first few stages on the hilly parkour. It's not like you're going to just drop Demi on them either. It's just not happening. Unless she improves a lot. She said she had a disjointed off season due to a running injury. Ban running for pro cyclists. Amateurs on Join use running. Use Join running because you probably don't have you're probably more athletic than half the pro cyclists.
Yes, I am.
No, legit. What was I going to say? But yeah, I think she had a running injury, which we hear about because it's the pluses and minuses. The trainers want the riders doing running in the off season for their bone density, but then the problem is the cyclists are too fit and they start running at 4-minute K pace for 10 Ks, and they're like, "Why do I have a stress fracture?" It's like, well, yeah, because you ran too fast and your body's not adapted to it. That's why you got to use a plan like Join Cycling. Because Join Cycling slows you down. It tells you what pace you need to run at. You tell it what's your running history or your training history. And that's a feature request that was heavily featured. I just got an email from Join Cycling saying it's a 1-year anniversary that they moved into their office, which I visited, met everybody at Join Cycling. It's actually an old prison. It's a pretty cool office, I would say. They just got all the programmers locked in prison. And that's what they do. Because Join Cycling, it's a small team, agile team. They're real people. They read all your comments and they adapt just like the training programs adapt. They adapt to what you want. And if you didn't realize, there's a features request page on Join Cycling's website, and you can go on there and it's very active. There's so many, you can upvote features. There's hundreds of people, hundreds of different things like add taper training sessions, have different customization for interval workouts. I want this sort of integration. I want to export whatever. There's loads of them, and you can upvote the ones and even filter by top. And then Join, they take them on board. For example, training history, one of them is develop a dashboard that presents users with a comprehensive overview of their workout history. That's in progress, the most upvoted one. So you can actually have direct communication to them, and they'll roll out the features, and they do roll out features quickly, which is really cool. So yeah, go check that out on the Join feature request, because I know many of you are users and hardcore users, and Join, their team wants your feedback.
Boucle de la Mayenne. Most people might not have heard of this race, but it's a pro race. It's got, I think, 4 stages, one of which is a prologue. And we had quite a few known winners, I would say. Pierre Latour is the rider that most cycling fans would know. Has been on TotalEnergies for quite a few years now and won one of the stages 3 seconds in front of the rest of the peloton, basically. But the GC was won by a Gate. Aaron Gate wins GC at Boucle de la Mayenne, which... Aaron Gate, fair, okay, sure. That's Astana. Astana's winning another pro race, which means more UCI points, which means they're doing well when it comes to UCI points, looking at the Giro d'Italia as well. And I gotta say, the battles have shifted a little bit. How about we talk about a bit of a relegation update? Because before the Giro, Astana was basically the upcoming force that had just passed the Picnic Postinel at the start of the Giro, in doing so, putting Picnic Postinel in trouble. But our assessment before the Giro was, Picnic should never look at Astana from this point onwards, or not, at least not focus on Astana, because the battle should be between Cofidis and Picnic Postinel. How have the results shifted throughout the Giro d'Italia, in the Giro and out of the Giro, to right now? to the point that, is there a new team in the relegation zone?
There is indeed, Benji, and Cofidis are the team in the relegation zone. They had a shocking Giro. They couldn't get consistent result. To be honest, I also, when we first saw the parcours, I didn't expect the sprints to be so selective. And in the end, Fratan didn't get so many opportunities to sprint. And when he did sprint, he didn't take advantage of those opportunities to even come second or third consistently. And they actually took him out of the race because it was so hard. There was one sprint left, and so he could rest and then he can go farm somewhere else. So, yeah, Cofidis kind of cut their losses in the Giro. Aldani and Monique didn't score enough consistent. They just didn't have a good team. And I would say Picnic had an okay Giro.
Yeah.
But also not what they would have been looking for. Like Van Uden was good, and that was surprising, but what I think they were looking for was like consistent points from breakaways. If Bardet fell out of GC, he scored a 250, 260, but maybe they hope for more, and maybe a top or a double top 10 from him and Poel, and that they didn't get that.
That was the focus for them. They wanted, I think, 2 riders around 8th position in GC was what they said before the race started. So they didn't get that in GC. I think Poel got 11, then eventually Bardet, like you said, fell out of GC, but I still think they got just under 1,100 UCI points, which they probably wanted, if I had to guess, maybe 1,300 if they put a mark before this Giro started. But then you look at Cofidis, and relative to Cofidis, they do positive. But if we look at the scheduling setup and we look at both Cofidis and we look at both Picnic, Cofidis races more than Picnic Postinel. Picnic Postinel on paper does better in Grand Tours, you would say. So if we compare that, how likely, who are we looking at? Because Cofidis is now in the relegation zone. Who are we most worried about for the rest of the season? Or is it kind of 50-50?
I'd say it's 50-50. It really depends on Picnic's injured riders and what they can do. Because Picnic, it's less like are they going to consistently be good across the board farming? To me, it's more can only do something special in the Tour and come consistently 5th and 6th on Tour de France stages, like Mur de Bretagne. And you say only on Mur de Bretagne. Look where only finished in that UAE Tour Stage 1 sprint.
Yep.
So they're going to be hoping he does that and he top 10s GC and he scores like 500 points during those 3 weeks. I don't know what sprinter they're taking or they're taking. Who's their versatile sprinter? Lund Andresen.
Wait. Yes, Lund Andresen, because Jakobsen was supposed to go, but he got injured.
That's a blessing in disguise because Jakobsen wouldn't have survived any of these sprints.
I agree.
So
being said, there are
true. First stage is easy.
There are opportunities, but I agree. I think Lund Andresen is a better option overall.
Yeah, and trying to look, how many points do you get for a Tour de France stage these days? I know that's all people care about. They don't care about actually winning it. You get you get 210. Yeah, you get 110 points for third in a Tour de France stage. That's the same as more or less as winning a 1.1. And so they'll be hoping that you can just Lund Andresen can top 5 the sprints a few times. Whereas Cofidis is all about farming on the minor calendar. They got a shitload of races at what is this, Benji? Heilen Vasrode Heistepijl?
Yes.
It's not real.
What do you mean it's not real? It's very real, my friend. Who won it last year?
Bini?
Alexander Kristoff, apparently.
There you go. Brussels Cycling Classic, for example, is one of the softest top pro races. That's 200 points for winning. Antwerp Port Epic. So they're hoping like Pete Allegard and those guys can score points here. So they're all about the minor calendar and Fratan at Copenhagen.
Does the way they need to score points impact their preparation for races like the Tour de France? Because, for example, Tobias Lund Andresen is riding all the one-day races now. Helen Vassour-Gijs-Sepijl, Brussels Cycling Classic, Antwerp Port Epic, Duracell Dwars door Gageland, Copenhagen Sprint, and then the Tour de France. Because on paper, you'd say in that period, you'd usually do your training camp, right?
Yeah, and that's where it feels like they've had to let go, Picnic, of what their idealistic view was in maybe January that if they just do all the right optimal preparation, it will all be okay. And that's not the case. And some things happened outside of their control, a lot of injuries, a lot of crashes like they had last year that maybe they didn't foresee, Jakobsen, for example. But now they're like, yeah, Lund Andresen just, maybe he scores a couple of places worse in some Tour de France sprints, but if he's done all these ChatGPT races, that's worth way more in the end. As long as he's not completely wrecked by the end of the tour, maybe he will be. But yeah, I think they've changed course, to be honest. So and he was good in Norway. They had to.
So yeah, overall conclusion, it's now between Cofidis and Picnic Postenel for the relegation, but
with a small,
also when it comes to...
With a small Intermarché Wanty kicker.
They need to watch out.
Yeah, they need a big tour out of Binny. It is a good parkour for Binny. I don't think he'll win green, but it's a good parkour for him. Yeah. And they got to, they're not scoring. Tyson hasn't scored at all. Louis Barret, I think he's not sure if he's doing the tour. They need some results out of him there. But the tourists, I got a hot take for you, Benji. Tour of France is a hard place to get results.
Really?
It's a hard place to get results.
Basically a French kermesse to me.
It's tricky there. I think we can all confirm Astana are safe. It's done. Like, they can probably chill out a little bit, but I don't think they will. Did you say what Vinokurov said to Vasseur?
I did not say what Vinokurov said to Vasseur. Basically, Vinokurov mentioned in a Eurosport French article that Vasseur told him that he's not too worried about UCI points, and Vinokurov responded in a way of like, we'll see. He's confident now.
Yeah, he's confident now. But like, Astana hired a data analyst at the start of the year. Now, I don't know if the data analyst is why Christian Scaroni can win stage 16 of the Giro, but the Mount finish. But certainly their race scheduling and was way better.
He just needed a data analyst to tell him, you got to write 0.2 watt per kilo faster.
I'm telling you, that's all you do. You just go to small riders and you say, small rider, this big mountain, you just ride as fast as you can up it, dude. We're like, holy fuck, you've really unlocked the secret of cycling. Legit, the Giro, Simon Yates, small man, Colle della Finestra, big mountain. Go fast. Go as fast as you can up it.
But what do you say to a Wout van Aert then? Because you say to Wout van Aert,
big man,
big mountain. Also ride fast.
Big man, big mountain, must start with advantage. Wout van Aert, big man, flat valley road, go fast. Put Simon in pocket. Put him in your backpack. It's really
expert strategy.
Rocket science stuff. So yeah, I assume the data analysts are doing the same stuff at Astana. But
how to win a Grand Tour in 10 minutes.
How to win a Grand Tour, ride up the hardest climb as fast as you can and drop everybody else.
If only Scaroni knew that, he might have won the Giro.
Fortunato, look, I don't know why he didn't try on Finestra. Maybe he's just chilling. Otherwise, we're going to see Picnic adding more and more races. So I think they're going to be adding, they already did Langkawi, but they're going to be adding more and more races, I dare say, at the end of the year, because Cofidis are going to do them. And we're going to see, I think, a mega battle. Guangxi might never have held more importance, Benji, in our hearts, or Giro del Veneto.
Right. We said the same 3 years ago.
Do we?
Yes. The previous relegation. And then the UCI changed the rules or something?
Yeah, they chickened out. Because then it was like relegation, they gave them a really soft landing. I don't think they get that this time anymore.
I don't think so either. They shouldn't, that's for sure.
Who's your feeling on... I feel like Picnic could actually turn it around, Benji, because they have the quality.
The thing is, like, the problem I have is that I think there's too many French World Tour teams, and I would like to see a better French World Tour team instead of so many of them. Does that make sense? Because for that sake, I would want Picnic Postenel to stay up, and also because quality-wise, rider-wise, I think they're better. Like, I'm sorry, when I look at the roster of Cofidis, that doesn't inspire me as an actual proper World Tour team. that's like on the border. When it comes to Picnic Postenel, it's half-half. I feel like it's always been half a development team and half riders that are kind of over the hill. Like, you'd say Romain Bardet is not at his best of his career anymore. That being said, he's still delivering results. Degenkolb, can't really judge him this year because he crashed out before his main goals of the season. But it's kind of been in between of those two, no?
Yeah, it feels like they always missed the middle. And like the talented guys, when they got to their peak years, 25, 26, there was often disagreements, or they would leave, or some problems that could often happen. So yeah, but it's also a matter of money. You progress, you get to turn a guy into a top rider, then you have to pay him when his contract expires, like he's a top rider. Yep.
Got to pay riders.
You do have to pay them, yeah, when they perform really well. And so that's a difficulty. That's the reality they have to deal with, and that's why they maybe have the bifurcated. They get the older guys like Degenkolb who are from the environment, or Barguil who are from the environment back, and then they bet on the young talents. But yeah, Fabio was not good. That with the relegation looming, that was not the best way to spend their money.
Terrible signing.
Yeah.
Not the best is a very, very conservative way of saying it. That was a horrible signing. We saw it from the start. You had a sprinter that couldn't position himself with a team that couldn't position a sprinter. And if you put that together, that didn't work together. And, well, the conclusion also was that when it comes to a fitness level in certain Grand Tours, he just wasn't at the level where you needed to survive enough climbs to get to the sprint and so forth. That being said, I hope he finds a way to get through the health problems he has right now to end up showing himself properly now. But
Mathieu van der Poel, speaking of showing himself, he's broken his scafoid, which is in his wrist or hand, I believe. He crashed in a mountain bike race twice. I saw one on video, and there's like a bunny hops or something, and he goes over the bars and like spears into the ground, puts his hand out and he breaks his hand. I think a scafoid injury can be a little bit tricky. It has to be in a cast, and he is in a hard cast, and but he can train on the trainer. I would say Mathieu van der Poel should stop doing mountain bike riding.
Mate,
he doesn't look very good at it to me.
Conspiracy theory. He didn't want to go to the Tour de France, and he was like, let me take this bike and shove it into this rock. That's my conspiracy theory. That being said, the other of the two crashes was basically that he tried to move past someone on the left side of the road, but there was no space, so he basically just rode himself off the road. And that just, I don't know much about mountain bike. I will not claim that I do, but that looked like a mistake.
Yeah. So Luke says he's already training outside without the cast, so it must be working okay. I don't think he's doing the Dauphiné, which he was supposed to do. He's not. So that's a shame for that race, because actually had quite a few hilly, attritional sprints that would have suited him. Especially him against Milan would have been a nice battle, but he's out of that. But hopefully he's back for the Tour de France. That, of course, has the Mur de Bretagne, which he won on in spectacular fashion in those nice purple jerseys, the Poule d'Or jerseys in 2021, where he took yellow. They were actually, they were class. And a lot of versatile, punchy sprint stages in week one, where he will be the favorite or top three favorite in those stages. So hopefully he's back for the race, I would say. And
next to that, there's also news from Jayco-AlUla, Matt White, who was the, would you say, team manager? Not really. That's Brent Copeland. What is that role called that Matt White was in?
Matt White was head of the performance program, I think. So he was not doing. Okay. Listen, I don't know. I have no inside info on what happened, the team structure, anything. I'm just going off the org chart I know sort of from publicly or their website. Yeah. But from what I can see, Copeland was above. Correct. And Matt White was more the sportive stuff. So, the race program of what race this rider's going to, Ben O'Connor's going to do the Tour de France this year, Plappy will do the Giro, and Brent Copeland was above that, where he's dealing with ownership, although of course Matt White had a strong relationship or a long-term relationship with ownership, and getting sponsors and dealing with sponsors and running the team as a whole business entity. But of course, you often have you're interacting between all those levels on things like program. So like one person doesn't decide what race Ben O'Connor's doing. If ultimately if senior management say, hey, this guy needs to do the Tour de France, there can be conflict or there needs to be discussions. Although that's not, I don't think that's what the split was about at all.
It should have been.
No, it's pretty.
O'Connor should have been at the Giro.
O'Connor would have. This Giro, the way it happened for O'Connor,
mate,
it's the perfect O'Connor Giro too. Not to win it, but he would have got a good result. The guy that
left won the Giro.
Yeah. But anyway, it sounded like they just didn't, there was, from the press release initially, there was no agreement on like a path forward, whether that's about transfers, recruitment, no, we don't know. Which is it was a shock because Matt White's been a long-standing member of the team and he's been around the team when it's had its big successes. I mean, as an Australian, I mentioned Cadel Evans Tour de France win getting me into cycling, but really it was Mitchelton Scott, it was Bike Exchange, it was Orica Green Edge. Those years where this team was a force,
mate,
in the Grand Tours, hunting stages, Simon winning GC at the Vuelta, Bling good, like Caleb winning sprints.
Mate, I can't believe you go to those results and don't mention Simon Gerrans winning Liège, Bastogne Liège in the early years. That was before your time.
All due respect to Simon Gerrans, great Palmares, but him hiding in the wheels for 6 hours and then jumping out with 25 minutes to go in those races is not the most awe-inspiring. I mean, Chavito in the Giro is a little bit more my excitement levels.
I see. I hated Simon Gerrans for a living. When you start a pro cycling manager season, you jump into the game and the first race is the Australian Championships. And I loved Cadel Evans, but Cadel Evans never had a sprint. So I always lost from fucking Simon Gerrans in the sprint.
And then I hated him. And you can't beat him in TDU either.
Exactly. Horrible.
Anyway, it's a team that, Australian fans really want to see them do well. And they had like what I would call them their glory years in those years. A few down years, and they got close to relegation in the previous cycle. They're okay this cycle, but then last year they weren't winning as much or did early this year. And so it just wasn't going well. And it seemed Jerry, let me quote it properly, but there was an interview with Jerry Ryan, I believe, on Cycling News, a short interview on why he was restructuring. And he was quite magnanimous, actually. He thanked Matt White for his service to the team, saying Matt White left a mark on the team. But if you keep doing the same thing, you get the same result. We're doing a restructure. We sat down with Matt and we saw where we wanted to be. Out of it came a decision by mutual agreement to move on. So they're just changing direction.
From our perspective, we don't know whether there's other inside stuff that led to these decisions, etc. But from an external perspective, based on what Matt White has achieved with the team previously, I would expect him to still end up in the sport of cycling at some point in the coming years. It's not like he's going to disappear forever, right?
And that's the thing, like, this is what he knows. He only knows. I mean, I don't know Matt White personally, but he, he's worked in cycling for the majority of his professional life. So, and he's run very successful teams or run the transfers and the sporting strategy for very successful teams. So,
time to learn cricket, buddy.
Would I be surprised if... No, cricket's my domain. If there's any good plum jobs in cricket, fucking hands off.
RIP the podcast when cricket job arrives.
No, don't worry. New York Mets. New York Mets, that's the one.
If that opportunity arrives, we're done. Is that what you're saying?
I can send you a postcard, Benji, or something from Citi Field, but... New York Mets.
I'll just be doing the podcast with Toby then.
Yeah. You can do it with Francisco Lindor. Would you be surprised if Israel Premier Tech or a Tudor or a Lotto who maybe need that hide Matt White? Wouldn't surprise me. So yeah. But it was just, I don't know, just a little bit sad, I guess. It just happened so abruptly. But
what sport is the Mets?
Baseball.
Okay. Is that what the Toronto Jets?
Toronto Blue Jays.
Close enough.
They got Vlad Guerrero, big bopper.
Don't know what that means, but anyway, let's continue.
He got a big ass and he hit the ball a long way. And he got
I'm
a
happy
contract
for
for
him.
like $500 million. So because he hits the ball. That's a baseball. I'll go in, Benji. Oh, sorry, I know we're getting sidetracked, but if I ever had a job in baseball, it would be like this. So what do you know about baseball? Big man, swing bat hard, ball go far. Holy shit.
I'm just imagining like you as like the main character of Ted Lasso going to a whole different sport.
It's like reverse Ted Lasso. At least I speak Spanish, so that helps in MLB. Fuck, we're off topic. Okay. Anyway, it was good. To be honest, it was good. Jayco had a good Giro. Plappy and Harper winning, loved it. And they were good wins too. Back to the other news. INEOS TotalEnergies, Benji, speaking of restructures, we've heard a lot of rumors, a lot of nothing official, nothing even an official quote from anybody that was on the fence about this TotalEnergies merger. Now, I know you might be, you don't moonlight as a petrochemical corporate expert on how the two companies work together, because it seems somewhat odd. Two petrochemical companies, why would they want to go together? But apparently they have joint ventures together for certain projects. I don't know.
If one oil works with other oil, more oil.
So Benji, another thing, that was actually my first work that I ever did. I was like becoming a specialist in joint ventures in oil and gas and the coal industry. Yeah.
That's nice.
I actually did like joint ventures. It's just getting people to work together with mutually beneficial interests. But
so the contracts you set up, or do you like work for one and then try and fuck over the other?
Yeah, a bit of that sometimes. Yeah, so you can act for one JV party and then you represent their interests when you're putting the JV agreement together. I didn't work in litigation, so I
like being a rider agent.
Yeah, it was. I worked in more like we're all happy, we all want to make money together and put this deal together part. Then downstairs was when they started fighting about you took the coal and you took too much, or you washed it too much and then you gave us the shit coal, and that stuff was good. Well, it actually sounds boring now I speak about it aloud. Anyway,
that's why we're on the podcast.
Yes, exactly. Talking about this possible joint venture between INEOS and TotalEnergies. And we saw her in early May, or from March, there was the Escape Collective article about it. And I was like, piqued my interest, okay, but all due respect to them, I want to wait for like the Times or a broadsheet who I know maybe gets a closer inside line from inside INEOS, and indeed that did come. There was an article in the Times about a possible merger, and it was from Lawton, I guess. I can't open it right now. But it was from Lawton, and he seems pretty dialed into what's going on at INEOS sometimes. Maybe I'm misremembering. And I was like, okay, this might happen. Then there were rumors that Ratcliffe would personally bankroll Remco. And then Jürgen Foray, I think he has a timer in his phone. If you're the Quickstep CEO, you set a notification in your phone or in your Outlook calendar every year around May 20 to deny that Remco is leaving your team and remind everybody that he has a contract. And indeed, Jürgen Foray had to do that dance again. But what do you think, Benji? You just mentioned that Cofidis, you want to see a harmonization of the French talent, perhaps. This would somewhat achieve that. TotalEnergies are not a good team. They're not a pro team going towards being a world team. From a sporting perspective, this actually makes sense to me.
I think so as well, because on one end, TotalEnergies is in trouble. That's fair to say. They're a pro team that is not going to make it to World Tour and is kind of just stuck there, and they're not scoring enough points anyway to get a proper amount of wildcards either, so they're in trouble for Tour de France participation in the future. So they need to figure that out. And if they want to make an actual change in the sport, an actual move in the sport that is meaningful, they are probably better off being in a World Tour team. TotalEnergies is also a brand that is pretty international, so I expect them to want it on the forefront of the sport and not in the second division of the sport. INEOS and TotalEnergies coming together, I don't care about the actual logistical side of things of oil plus oil. I don't care about that. I'm sorry. It's more team plus team that I look at. And I see two teams where, to be honest, if you look at the TotalEnergies team itself, There's a few riders that I like a Janier and so forth. But the majority of that team does not move the needle if they merge with INEOS.
It's not a merger, no? It's sponsor TotalEnergies coming out of that team and going to INEOS.
And then Bernardo will look for a different sponsor for the now TotalEnergies, who is kind of left in the dust. And then we'll see what happens with those riders. Let's hope they find a place to be in the peloton.
But he's looking like he already set that up because they spent not a dollar. Like that team's all French riders. Kras will probably leave. It looks like he already did the downsizing preparations last transfer period.
Yep, that is fair. So if we assume, like you say, which is also what was reported, if I recall correctly, that TotalEnergies moves as a sponsor to the team, that allows for more budget. I vividly remember seeing that it would allow INEOS themselves to lower their financial input into the team by a bit, but by having TotalEnergies with them, it would increase the budget of the team in total. And that's why I was confused, because INEOS money down, TotalEnergies money up, and then the Remco bankrolling personally by Radcliffe would suggest Radcliffe money up. Doesn't that not equalize current INEOS money if INEOS money goes down and Radcliffe money goes up?
I think so. I think clearly INEOS have, like they've divested themselves of a lot of rider salary. We've all seen it. Danny Martinez to Bora, Adam Yates to UAE, Sivakov to UAE, you name it. Theo Gegenhardt, probably they chose not to match what Little Trek were offering. So they already have done that downsizing. Castro will retire. Don't know the status of Kwiatkowski. But clearly they need money to get the new talents in. And not when I'm not talking the Remcos, and often Benji with with Remco, I think if that becomes a possibility, they have to make it happen.
Yeah.
Like, they have to try to make it happen, whatever way possible. The Pinarello deal is expiring. That's their bike sponsor. Remco, we know, is tied to Specialized. I don't know if that's a lifetime contract like Sagan was.
Probably not.
But it's probably pretty restrictive, and he'd want to stay with Spesh, like Van der Poel's with Canyon. So then do INEOS have to go to Spesh? So then they got to work that deal out. And then is Pinarello leaving to Q365 because Glasenberg owns Pinarello and he owns the team? So then that would make a lot of sense to me to pair them together. When the Scott deal expires, I think that would happen.
But if we look at the transfer side of business, you're right, it's like a lot that needs to happen by the end of the year, right? Because we've had this discussion about a few things before.
Oh no, I think they
2026 is the idea, right?
I think Remco stays until the end of his contract with Quickstep. But this is the moment to get the buyout.
Exactly. That's what we've said. Like at the start of the year, my assumption was Roglic contract running out at Bora Hansgrohe, they will see the opportunity to take and replace him with Remco Evenepoel. That was the obvious switch on paper. INEOS has been wanting Remco as well for a couple of years now, but nothing actually came out of that. But if we look specifically at INEOS and the riders they have, like GC-wise, Egan Bernal just stopped in the Giro. He's not looking like he's any closer to win a Grand Tour or podium one, like you mentioned in the Giro recap podcast that was up a couple of days ago. Next to that, Geraint Thomas is about to come to an end. Next to that, Carlos Rodriguez is maybe the rider that is the most prominent GC rider on the team for the coming years, but that's a rider whose ceiling for me is getting a podium at a Grand Tour. I don't see Carlos Rodriguez winning a Grand Tour. And he needs to move up in some fashion when it comes to his performance to be able to deliver that for me, and that I haven't seen yet. So for me right now, his ceiling is a top 3 in a Grand Tour. So I'm looking at their team and I don't see a GC leader that can win a Grand Tour for a team that has a high budget, and they need that. So that's why Remco Evenepoel would make a lot of sense. And you would argue that if Soudal Quickstep, the contract of Remco is ending anyway at the end of 2026. No, wait. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Math, okay. Which year are we? 2025, then 2026 is next year. So at the end of next year, Remco Evenepoel's contract ends at Soudal Quickstep. this is the last opportunity, like you said, for a buyout to happen. So it's the last opportunity for Quickstep to earn extra money for getting rid of Remco Evenepoel. Now, getting rid of Remco Evenepoel is not great. The question that I have here is, Patrick, hypothetically, if a buyout happens, what are the sponsors of Soudal Quickstep going to say about that at the end of the season if that happens? Plus, what happens to the minor things around it? For example, Remco has his own development team that is sponsored by the sponsors of the Soudal Quickstep team. Does that development team collapse? There's so many small little factors that I'm like, are we underrating how much needs to move for this to happen?
Exactly. And that's why it just makes it complicated to do it now, in 6 months? And that's why I just don't think it will happen. Even though it might, to extract maximum value from Remco. I mean, maybe the sponsors say, we don't want you to do that. Soudal Quickstep, we want to do one more Tour de France with Remco, even though we forego the buyout fee. And, and then you build the team as you wish for 27.
What if it's out there, what I'm about to say, but what if Pogacar and Vingegaard are not at their best level next year at the Tour de France, and Remco suddenly wins the Tour de France in the colors of Soudal Quickstep next year, and then leaves the team? Then those sponsors got a lot for their money of 1 year, and the team probably is very happy to have that extra year, regardless of missing out on the buyout money. So it's not likely that Remco suddenly wins the Tour de France next year, but it's not completely impossible either.
He's a third favorite this year, so
exactly.
Nibali won in 2014 as the third favorite.
Why do you have to bring Nibali up?
Because he was the third favorite at best, I think.
It's not his problem that Froome couldn't ride his bike on the cobble stage and Contador couldn't ride his bike on the medium mountain stage.
Exactly. So, and it's not like, okay, you get his buyout, great. You're not going to replace him in the aggregate. You don't then say, we get these lovely pieces together who are Remco. No, that's not how it works. But back to the more, let's say the INEOS Total merger does happen, Remco to the side, we don't know exactly what happened there. They're going to be looking French, right, Benji? Surely they're looking more French.
I think they've mentioned Vauquelin in an article. I don't know what the source is for that, so I probably shouldn't have mentioned it without source, but maybe Luke can figure it out while we are yapping about it.
I think that's logical. He's a young French. He's come podium twice in Flèche, won a Tour de France stage. He's 22 or something. And so, if they get a big bundle of cash from a French multinational, it would make sense to go for him. Benoit Cosnefroy is out of contract, not had a couple of good years, inconsistent but wins. Victor Lafay, not worked at Decathlon, obviously in 23 won. I'd rather go Vauquelin than Lafay.
I agree, but what problems are we solving here with INEOS? Because when I look at INEOS, problem number one is not winning Grand Tours. Problem number two is not winning enough. You're looking at the not winning enough problem when you say Vauquelin and Cosnefroy, right? But why don't they end up looking for a sprinter, knowing that Ewan actually gave them some victories before he dipped out before the Giro d'Italia? Because that's an area where they're really lacking.
Well, sprinters are left. Welsford.
Yeah.
Lamperti. Gerben Thijssen.
I don't see that.
Fretin, if Cofidis relegate.
Because
Bietner. Oh no, he's
something we haven't necessarily mentioned, even in the relegation discussions, is if relegation happens, just like 3 years ago, it is the case that the riders that are in those teams that are relegating can suddenly leave the team, right? Which might mean that World Tour teams may wait until that happens to find some interesting riders.
Yeah, it's possible that happens. Now, the rider has to, I guess, want to leave. You can't just assume that they just want to join your team or leave. But yes, relegation can mean sponsor contracts. Sponsors can step out because the sponsor contract is contingent upon a World Tour license. So it can be a death knell for these teams if it happens. But indeed, the sprinters out of contract is looking a little bit thin now that Groves extended, Merlier extended, and then you're more talking like, I mean, Ethan Vernon actually would be nice, but he's under contract still, so they're maybe looking. I mean, Bennett, to me, that's not the solution.
No.
Milano,
I'm looking through this list and I don't see it.
Milano's actually a good fit. Milano's a good fit,
Mate, you know what I found out yesterday? Sergio Henao and Sebastian Henao. Do you remember those two guys?
Yeah. Paris winner,
These
right?
two guys are still active.
Doing what?
They ride in a Colombian continental team.
They're not that old.
Yeah, they're near 40, I think, 39, 37. Oscar Sevilla also still active. There was also a guy that was 49 that was
Mate,
also still active.
Sebastian Henao is younger than me. He's 31.
What?
Yes.
Are you that old?
Wait, same year, but when did he join Sky? He must have been so young.
Mate, ages ago. But he was in a package with his brother, if I recall correctly, because his brother was the better one.
Yeah. Sergio was class. He won Paris. I think Sebastian Milano is a good fit. They had success with Colombians. They got Spanish trainers. And Milano can do his own thing. You give him half a lead out, he'll make the best of it. And I think he's pretty good. So I think that's the sort of sprinter they should be looking for. Try to get 5-6 wins out of him. Is he cheaper than Welsford?
Should be. No, I don't know. Because he's actually won Grand Tour
Milano just won Dapana.
Okay, wow. Just won Dapana because everyone else fucking crashed.
Yeah, well, don't crash.
Congratulations, Milano. I'm happy for you.
No, I mean, he jumped Milan. Milan didn't crash.
Yeah, fair.
But he won in, yeah, you're right. It's not like but that's the thing. Milano doesn't ask anything of you. You know, he doesn't.
Michael Matthews.
Matthews actually, like, well, no, like, wouldn't he be good?
We've said this about every team. He fits everywhere.
Because Michael Matthews is incredibly underrated.
Brian Kokar.
No.
Lund Andresen.
Yeah. So you think a sprinter? I agree, Benji. I think they're going to go for like more the Cosnefroid puncher or Vauquelin. I think they'll go for a French puncher if this happens. And what about their extensions? Let's have a look at who's their expirings. So they have out of contract. Did you already go through all these?
I did not go who's out of contract, but there's actually quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot. So Thomas retires, Ewan retired, Castro and Freyler retire. That's all okay. Kwiatkowski is a question mark. I think Kwiatkowski, with the level he showed in high end, you'd want him to continue for a few years. The problem is his injuries. I think he had a knee issue that kept him out.
And the price.
Yeah. So he has to come down. He has to if he wants to keep going. Ben Swift, question mark. Like, Ben Swift was actually all right. Like, he's all right. Actually, in Dunkirk, he was all right.
Was he not the guy in the breakaway at Strade Bianche?
As Connor Swift.
Oh, fuck. You're right.
Ben Swift actually is... Ben Swift's still good, like solid enough on a minor calendar. I would, if you're bringing in a sprinter as a mentor to riders, assuming he's good at that, keep him around.
Hamilton, Rivera, Hajduk stay, in my opinion. Leonard...
Hamilton, I think you extend now.
Yeah.
In case he does anything. In case he does anything better. Because in Nigeria, I was like, I was like, Lucas Hamilton's putting a hard pace here. I was like, Jesus.
Rivera as well, by the way.
Rivera was class. Obviously, he should be extended. Puccio, I think it's done. Hajduk, decent lead outs in copy. He doesn't do a classic. Like, he's no good in the classics.
But you need riders like Hajduk in a team, you know?
You're right.
Is this the problem that INEOS has? They started working with Lotto Kernhaus as their development team, but it doesn't work like that in the same way as a Visma Leasebike and Visma Leasebike development team, where when Visma Leasebike goes to a random fucking race, they can take a World Tour rider with their development team to that race, or oppositely, they can go to a World Tour race with to a pro team race with their World Tour team with a rider from their development team. INEOS can't do that with their Lotto Kernhaus team, no?
Correct. It's not part of the same structure, so you can't have the transfer the riders around like that. But yeah, Hajduk, you're right, Benji. He probably won't be expensive, but yeah, he's just a helper. So it really, that's the sort of rider where you don't really know. Maybe he's really good internally, really like a pleasure to work with. All the riders like him, and that's actually kind of what counts more. Michael Leonard, I don't see it. He's just not good in he's not good in the bunch. He's very young, of course, and he's talented. Yeah. He won the prologue in Tour de l'Avenir last year, but I've not seen it in any road stage.
So, is it a bit of a? It's a weird comparison because they've got different backgrounds, but is it a bit of an Osborne issue?
Yeah, it's like Hayter now.
What, sorry?
It's like Ethan Hayter now.
Oh, I thought you said, I hate him now about Osborne. No. I was like, what?
No, but Hayter he can actually ride the front. That's what he does, like Dylan Van Baarle style on some mountain stages in Catalunya. I think he was quite good. So, yeah. Langalotti, I think they should go for more of those Langalotti signings. He was good in Norway, good in Dunkirk. It's not going to win the Tour de France for you, but yeah, pick up some more of these sort of riders that are actually good.
I see that, but Langalotti is not the go-to man for the team for me either. It's like, yes, he's had results, but that's not the type of result I shout INEOS at, you know?
Yeah, you're right. That if they want to get back to winning Grand Tours or winning monuments, I think he's indeed not that rider.
Because who's their guys for the Classic? It's just a very robust team. You've got Tarling, you've got Turner, you've got Watson, you've got a bunch of other Swift.
Classics, it should be okay. I mean, the class Sam Watson's developing. He was good in Dunkirk.
But is it it's not a quick step issue, but is it a half quick step issue where they're all very good, but none of them can win a Classic?
Tarling's young. I wouldn't write him off yet.
Ganna
is the biggest talent, right?
Yes.
Because Ganna has the biggest engine ever, can actually sprint, can ride cobbles. I question his focus to the road, especially last year. And yeah, but you look at his results, like second in San Remo, he can win MSR. He was the only guy to go with Poggi and Van der Poel. That's not just a mid talent, that's a special talent. And
so they definitely have the Classics team, in my opinion.
I think the Classics team, the one-day racing, it looked to me really, it's kind of back. Maybe they do miss a sprint. They miss like Ganna's kind of a sprinter. I mean, why isn't Ganna should be farming more sprints?
Mate, remember when we were shouting at the Vuelta 2023 that they should
obscene.
Sprint with Ganna?
That was crazy. But I think GC-wise, it's a bit more complicated. A lot of money tied up in De Plus, Bernal, Aronsman, Carlos Rodriguez, G currently, but of course he's retiring. Jungels as a Grand Tour support rider. They just miss. They have all the pieces except the hardest piece, which is the ultimate GC leader at the moment. It was Bernal. Unfortunately, he had the crash. I don't think it's going to happen. They need Remco.
Yep.
Or to develop. Or...
Yeah, but it's not the only team that needs Remco right now.
Or Paul Seychelles with the TotalEnergies money.
Because we can keep talking about Roglic at the Red Bull Bora Hans, where yes, he's extended, but they need a solution too.
Yeah. So...
Unless we say Finn will be that in 5 years.
Lorenzo Finn. Maybe, but there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they'll be hunting for that next GC guy. Carlos Rodriguez, in the meantime, he is only 24, but he don't have the watts right now of, say, a Remco or a Roglic.
Yes.
Or you see any of the other young talents? I mean, who could they sign then on the open market, Benji? I guess the worst mistake to do then is to tie up money in someone who won't be that guy, but who's like another kind of good GC rider.
That's the thing. Like, if we look at other teams, then they would have a pool of young riders that they invest in, like Red Bull and the Red Bull rookies, who Lorenzo Finn might be one of them, someone else might become one of them, etc. Little Trek ended up having multiple riders like Teutenberg, Behrens, and so forth that were really good in their def team. And they've got, I think, Storm and what's his name? Uxenberg, who are now riding for Lotto Kettenhaus, but are technically INEOS riders that will come back to the team next year. Those riders could be something in the coming years, but could also not be something. But they're restricted to only a couple of riders within the space that Lotto Kettenhaus has for INEOS, while these other teams have an entire dev team of riders where
15.
Their pool of potential riders is. So the other teams are more likely to find that one talent than INEOS is right now, because they've got very limited pooling of talent within their structure.
Erksenberg looks pretty good, I would say. He's got some good results this year.
Which of the two was injured in the
Storm.
off season? Okay.
Storm was was he? Was Storm the one who was initially on the World Tour team, and then it was Storm.
Yeah.
Storm last year. I think of Van Wilde is just treading water. I just don't. This team doesn't need Ilan Van Wilde. Like, he's a good rider, but is he going to be better than Bernal next year?
No.
So yeah, I think just wait.
Unretired Thibaut Pinot. We've said it before.
I'm telling you, the TotalEnergies, go get the TotalEnergies CEO, go to his door, knock the goat out of the way, and say, Thibaut, here is the biggest bag of cash you've ever seen in your life. And Thibaut will be like, I don't care. I'm happy living my life. You say, all right, you go back and then you have a second meeting. How can we convince Thibaut to sign? Come on, he must be bored.
Even your imaginary conversation is not going successfully there.
I know. In my imaginary conversation, he said no. I'm like, look, we'll give you a bike fit. You get a bike fit, Thibaut. Like, what?
What a bike fit? I've never heard of that.
I've got a bike fit before. Seriously though, I mean, all jokes aside, I would actually, if the Total Energy INEOS merger actually happened, I would legit try it. What else you got to lose? He just says no.
Which other riders are there?
You have a guy with
Valverde
6.5 watt per kilo FTP just sitting there. You can get him to, he can podium the Tour.
Who else? Outside of Thibaut Pinot? Valverde's still riding gravel.
No, we don't want Valverde. Seychelles, wait for him to expire and make a play. I think you should already be going. Yeah, I think we're also assuming they just want these French riders. Maybe TotalEnergies want exposure in other countries. But indeed, I saw the statistic yesterday that there's been like 250 World Tour stage races without a French winner since they started World Tour.
Have any teams ever considered going to the place where certain riders came from? So, for example, Visma Lease bike, the previous team of Jonas Vingegaard, the Colo Quick team, right? Was it in 2016-ish? That team found him in a fish farm. Has anyone ever gone back to that fish farm to see whether there's someone else that can also ride a bike?
Peter Erksenberg. He's from Colo Quick. He's legit. Yes, they have.
Is he from a fish farm as well?
Every guy that does the Col de Rates record from the Colo Quick lead out, every guy subsequent to Vingegaard has just gotten a contract. Yes, they've done that. So yeah, no stone left unturned. Okay, that was INEOS discussion. What about him? Oh, if you're INEOS, yeah, if it's possible, you got to go for it, right?
Yeah. I would love to see Ayuso at INEOS.
Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be class. Because I feel like Bernal would keep his spirits up.
Yeah.
Bernal
and also,
like, don't worry, today we're gonna knock it out of the park.
It's also compatible. Carlos Rodriguez, Ayuso for a full season.
It is.
You can work with both of those.
It is. Like, there's way more space. And I think Bernal is happy to work for a guy stronger than him.
Yeah.
He's
but
happy
also
to do
his contract ends next year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so he is a good team player. So yeah, if that's possible, I mean, if Remco's not possible, then yeah, Ayuso is the next best thing, I would say. The next transfer update, just quickly, is Olav Koy is rumored to go to Decathlon Agilizar La Mondiale. HLN report that it's a package deal with Dan Holer, who won a Giro stage and was excellent, to be honest, throughout the race. Case Bowl, who has been solid at Astana in the sprints, and Robbie Gijs, who is an Alpecin lead-out specialist. And yeah, it makes sense. Like, Koy is an upgrade on Bennett.
I agree with that, definitely. He's like, Olaf Koy is the 4th best sprinter in the world right now. If I have to put a classification up right now in my head. But I do have the question. Kees Bol, sure, coming in as lead out. Robbe Gijs, sure, coming in as lead out. Those riders could be a lead out in multiple teams, is fine. The question is, Dan Hole, what is his incentive to come to this team instead of Little Trek? And the only thing I can point towards is opportunity. Or would you say it's money?
Well, no, you're right. Now you mentioned it, Benji. He has more opportunity in harder classics, right? Because Koy's not Mads Pedersen or me. He's not even Johnny Milan, and he's certainly not Vacek. So actually, with decathlon, you say Dan Hole, Paris-Roubaix, you and Stefan Bissiger, you go for the best result possible today.
With Benoit in the other classics, if that happens, according to the rumors that we saw in Willerfleds the other day or the other week.
Like, I don't think you just put Dan Hole to work for Benoit in E3 or Dwars Door or something.
Yeah.
But then in the flat sprints, maybe he's part of the lead out for Koy. It makes sense because, Bennett, he's just not as consistent a winner as Koy. If you send Koy with a decent lead out to some of these French races...
Sorry. Yeah. We don't even need to discuss this. Koy's a much better sprinter than Sam Bennett.
Yeah, of course.
Why did you pick Sam Bennett 5 times in the Giro then, my friend, over Koy, huh?
I just got completely hoodwinked and tricked by the Facebook stream of TotalEnergies. Whatever race it was. I was like, oh, he's flying. Turns out. Bennett's always relied way too much on his lead out, and if it doesn't work, it's like these... Yeah, whereas Koy, when a lead out goes wrong, can sometimes still make it happen. Not surprising to see that. Okay, let's do the Dauphiné preview, Benji. I mean, I'm really excited for this race. I almost can't believe it's happening. The last 1 week we had between Remco, Jonas, and Pog in good shape was... I literally don't remember. Did it ever happen?
They were not all 3 there in Basque Country where the crash happened last year. Pogacar wasn't there.
But Rog was there. Exactly.
Pogacar was a Paris-Nice and a Tirreno at some point, maybe, but... Yeah.
So Pog and Jonas have never gone up against each other at the Dauphiné. Last year it was Jorgensen, Roglic, and Remco at the Dauphiné, but Remco was coming back from his injury from Basque, so he was a bit underdone. This is a really, really exciting appetizer to the Tour de France. We also have Bardet here, apparently. Ben Healy.
Of course. Retirement.
Yes, of course. Lenny Martinez, who's been at altitude with Santi. Felix Gull. Paul Seychelles got changed from he sort of had the Matthew Brennan switch that we can't send him to the dot twos anymore. And he's on to the Dauphiné, which I like to see. Johnny Milan, Schkelmoser, Clement Brazafonso.
Do we expect Paul Seychelles to show up at the Tour de France already?
Nah, I don't think they'll do that to him. I think Dauphiné is a good middle ground.
Yeah, fair.
He goes against the big boys. He probably gets smacked, but it's just 1 week or 1 weekend of that. UAE Team Emirates, they obviously don't have the climbers that they might expect in the Tour because Almeida will do Swiss and Adam Yates just did the Giro, but they do have Soler, Sivakov as their main climbers from the provisional. Visma have Jurgensen, Koos, Kampenaerts, Vingegaard, Walter on the provisional, and Remco's there with Schachmann, VPP, Vavaka. The route, Benji.
No Landa, because Landa Giro.
Yeah, but probably he would have skipped this anyway because to prepare for the Tour de France after the Giro.
True, but it is an influence on the Tour de France, though.
Yeah,
obviously.
And indeed, what's different is I'll say with Koos there, Visma's mountains look stronger, but without Van Aert, Laporte, their rouleurs, which has been their traditional strength, looks weaker.
Yeah.
And then, so we see if Kampenaerts, can he step up into that role? And then UAE is the opposite. The rouleurs look solid, and
Poel, Soler,
they're missing
Wellens.
they're missing that the top end climbing, which is what they dominated the Tour with last year.
Yep, that's true. And then we look at the parkour where all these candidates are going to fight for, and we see actually first three stages, I'd argue versatile sprint stages, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you look at them, because the first one, the hilly terrain is mostly in the second half. The second and the third stage, the hilly terrain is mostly in the first 60% of the stage. But overall, these are hard sprint stages. If they're all gonna be sprint stages to begin with, because it wouldn't shock me that one of these stages end up with a breakaway rider winning in the style of, was it 2023, where Brent van Moer style, you know, back in the day.
Yeah, that's a great shout, Benji, where it's a hot day. Maybe the top sprinter thinks it's a bit too hard for him. The versatile sprinters think it's a bit too easy. No one wants to commit to chase. And yes, they go away on the last hill. And to be honest, the next two stages are also like that. Before, I think Milan will win 2 of the 3, though. He'll survive the second and third one. Stage 4 is an individual time trial, 17 kilometers long. It does have a steep hill in the middle of 1,800 meters, 8.5%. Then we have a Healy stage, 183 Ks. I think this is it should be beyond Milan, but maybe he's in really, really good shape. Then stage 6, I think stage 5 is the breakaway stage where Baggioli got rolled. He gets in a break with VMOs, Vercher, that sort of break. I'm telling you. Stage 6 is a proper mountain stage, 132 Ks. Two 23-kilometer climbs at 6 and 7%, and then another HC climb, 16K, 6%. Oh, actually, we've got 2 of the same profile here.
Yeah, no, that is not correct.
That's stage 7.
Unless they're riding both the same stage on 2 days. Stage 6, what is actual stage 6 here?
I should know.
I'm going to fill up the space here.
It's Combloux. It's a medium mountain stage finishing up the climb that was in the individual time trial in the Tour de France 2023. So it's the Dormoussi finish, and then indeed it's the high mountain stage I just said. And then the final stage is quite attritional, not long climbs, but a lot of climbing, 133 Ks, usually a raid stage, but usually the stage is a bit harder at the start with longer climbs, and then the finish is 9.7 K, 7%.
On paper, you would argue that right now going into this Critérium du Dauphiné, to me, Tadej Pogacar is like by far favorite for the Tour de France based on the last 2 years of cycling. Jonas Vingegaard is the challenger. He's stepping up to see how close can I get to challenge him. Can I challenge him at the Tour de France? Not impossible. It's very possible that we see a battle between the two like in the past. Last year, that wasn't the case. I'm hoping we have more of a battle this year. And also the question is, how close can Remco Evenepoel get to these other 2 riders, and can he benefit from the time trial in that sense? Because on paper, you'd say that Remco takes time on the 17-kilometer time trial, right?
Exactly. You'd expect the order to be Remco in the TT, Gap, Pogacar, another Gap, Vingegaard. Although there is the steep hill in the middle of it, but that's based on what we saw in the Tour de France last year. And to be honest, nothing's really changed my opinion on that this year. And then, the dynamics of how these 3 will work in the mountains. I think stage 6 and 7 and 8 rather, Remco should be fine. But that is a hard stage. That's a Col de la Croix de Fer is 22.5 Ks at 7% average with some rest in the middle. That's a proper climb. They do the Madeleine before. The last climb's not as hard though. The Volmanière 1800. So I think,
because if we assess the last few years of the sport, then back in the day, Visma Lease bike ended up beating Pogacar in TDF 2022, 2023, and a lot of the strategy was there based on what we saw, the pacing of the hard climbing stages to try and tear down Pogacar over 3 weeks and try and ruin him on a high energy expenditure, high kilojoules mountain stage with a massive climb in it. That was the vibe I got from TDF 22 and 23, obviously. Then I look at TDF 24. There's only been one since then. And there we see a completely different Pogacar. Trainer change at the start of the year, some other changes throughout the year. we come with Pogacar to the Tour de France and he destroys everybody, and that weakness that was what was his vulnerability in 22 and 23 was suddenly not that vulnerability or weakness anymore during that Tour de France of 2024. So how can Visma Lease bike look at the 3 weeks of the Tour de France and this Dauphiné and say, okay, how the fuck do you beat Tadej Pogacar if he's the best rider on the high mountain stages, if he's the best, fastest rider on paper on an uphill sprint on Combloux, if it goes to a group sprint on that, because it's actually pretty hard. And in the time trial on paper, he beats Jonas as well. Then it all depends on whether Jonas just has the watts.
And then on Valmont, 1800, at the end of the day, it's a 6.8% climb. It's not Grenal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not like a really, really steep finish, although the first two-thirds are reasonable, 10Ks at 7.5%, and the same with the final stage. Like, who's dropped Pog on 9K 7% after a medium? Like, it just doesn't happen.
No.
Now, that doesn't mean Pog just drops you on it either. We also, in stage 15 of the Tour in 23, but we're just talking about Pog has the advantage in the TT. Pog probably takes some bonus seconds in some sprints. Pog probably gets a small gap on some other stages. Like, Pog doesn't have to do anything. Yep. I mean, I expect without Almeida and Yates, they'll train it up with Soler and Sivakov in the final climbs.
I would expect the same, to be honest. And Pogacar is the favorite going into the Critérium du Dauphiné.
Yeah.
Just like he is going into the Tour de France right now. Pogacar is the challenger. And at Remco Evenepoel, the question is, how close can he get? And can he become a challenger? Maybe not even this year, but in the coming years. Can he get a step closer from last year? That's the question I have with Remco Evenepoel. So how much time can he get in the time trial to be a 4 to lose in the last 3 mountain stages? I expect him to lose that time, though, in those mountain stages, because Pogacar should win this Critérium du Dauphiné on paper.
I got a hot take for everybody.
Okay.
I think Lenny Martinez wins one of the Combloux or stage 8 finish from the group with Pog and co.
I think that's not impossible.
I saw an Instagram video of him sprinting against Fred Wright, and I decided Lenny's winning one of those 2 stages.
Honestly, if the last stage was a bit easier, like let's say it was like 5% instead of 10 per kilometer,
I think,
I would have gone like Magnus Cort Nielsen, but it's too hard.
Nah, it's too hard. and what I think happens on stage 8 is there's like the 3 of them start to just stop, and then Lenny comes back, and then it's a sprint. Lenny is so fast. He's so... it's crazy how fast he is.
The 3 of them stop. To me, it's still 2 dogs fighting for the bone, and Remco is the third.
Yeah,
one.
Lenny can come back with Remco.
Yeah. It's not impossible.
Yeah. I think Lenny is like, we lambasted. We were like, Bahrain, how could you pay him that much money? Dude, he's been so good this year. He won he's won World Tour races, mountaintop finish. Like, he's looking good, and we'll see how he goes in the Dauphiné. But I got my eye on Lenny Martinez. I really want to see him step up. Other young guys to look out for, of course, Sheffield Rodriguez, Felix Gall, Sechas. I'll be watching Lipovitz. Lipovitz is one to watch. So yeah, it'll be very, very exciting. I can't wait to watch. Actually, I do think
Brazafonso.
Yeah. Don't worry about Brazafonso. The sprinters field is actually too thin for how many sprints they gave them this time, and I don't know if he's coming. But yeah, I miss a Van Aert, a Laporte, a Bini, these sort of guys. And the reality is that if you're Picnic, if you're Intermarché, it's not worth it to send them to a 1-week World Tour race. There's no points. And they're kind of in that points dogfight right now. So, okay. Anything else from you, Benji, before we sign off?
Not necessarily. I think that's about it. It's been a good weekly catch up. It's not exactly been a week, but from now on it will be a week again, because we're doing daily Dauphiné podcast. When is this race actually starting? Which date? Because it's at the end of the week, right?
Sunday. Starts on Sunday.
Okay. So are we doing a weekly in the middle of the Dauphiné, or are we doing a weekly after the Dauphiné?
Yeah, sure. The first stages actually won't be that good.
Okay.
So yeah, we can do a weekly. We can stretch ourselves to a weekly. Okay, thanks for listening as always. And hope you enjoyed the podcast. And we'll see you with the Dauphiné Stage 1 on Sunday. Until then, ciao, ciao.